again for joining us this morning. Our plan is to go through today and discuss what decisions to make in order to start the MICIP process. So we're just going to kind of go through some suggestions, and the link to the PowerPoint will be put in the chat. And you might want to, you don't have to open that up right now, but we do provide several links throughout the PowerPoint today that might be helpful for you later. So you can kind of have that there as a reference. And we'll go ahead and get started. The first resource that we have for you today is the MICIP process guide. You might have seen this resource before and gone with it. It is actually pretty valuable. It is about 90 some pages long, so it can be a little bit intimidating, but it basically goes through the entire MICIP process from start to finish. There are active links in there that link to tools, resources, lots of questions to consider in there. So it really is a good reference. And today, throughout some of our slides and an additional resource we created, we actually reference certain pages within the process guide. So we definitely encourage you to take a look at it, even if just the specific parts that we reference today. The first thing that we have for you to go along with that process guide is our making decisions checklist. So that first link right there will take you to a document that we created. And by no means is this probably all inclusive, since everyone's situation might be different, but these were some main areas that we're going to go through today, slide by slide, just to talk about, to make sure that you are considering how to handle these different pieces within your district in order to make collaborative planning go smoothly. So you can kind of reference that. You'll notice there's some clickable links in there as well. And the process guide is referenced as far as what pages will, discuss further the topics that are there. So hopefully that turns into a handy tool for you. And the first area on that checklist is the team members. So that team roster template is actually something I believe we've shared before in our last MICIP chat, or possibly the one before. No, I guess it just would have been our last chat. It lists a lot of different positions that you might want to consider on your teams. Basically, the idea is to have a lot of cross-departmental representation, just that wide representation of the district. And then also, once you kind of get your areas of focus, really making sure that some of your, experts or people with that experience are on that team. So for example, if you're doing literacy, you're going to want to make sure that you've got people represented there that can speak to the literacy. But as you notice on this tool, there's a wide range of positions listed there. So really considering who is going to make that a well-rounded team. And then, one more thing there, Laura. Who has access to the MICIP platform? The MICIP administrator within each district gets to make that decision. So you can decide who in your district you want to have viewing rights, so they could log into the MICIP platform and just view what's there, or who has editing rights, so they could go into the MICIP platform and actually enter data or, type in information. But really consider who you want that to be, as it's your choice. And remember that as of right now, MICIP platform is not collaborative, meaning multiple people cannot be in at the same time, as it won't save correctly. So just keeping that in mind as you decide who has access. All right.
Thanks, Stephanie. So the next slide talks about, again, continuing around decisions, but this focuses in on your area of inquiry or your problem statement. So MICIP starts, rather than doing the comprehensive needs assessment like we've done in the past, where we've looked at all the data and filtered that down into the areas of need. There's an assumption that you know your district data, and perhaps you already have that area that you want to dig into, or you know the problem that exists. So the area of inquiry allows you to look at different pieces of data to support that area or that problem area. And some of the data that what is important is to decide which data you need to really dig down to find out maybe root cause. So you may decide to use your return to learn plan and the goals that you established there and the data that you collected in relationship to those goals. You might look at your previous district improvement plans, some of the data around the read by third grade law. Those of you that are involved in the MTSS project, you might use your MTSS implementation plan and just continue to build that out. You may do some pre-data analysis, like sticking with the comprehensive needs assessment idea. And then whatever else you might be currently using to track or setting goals. So it's wide open for you to use the data sources that you think will get you to the root cause and really good conversation around problem solving.
And Susan, before we move forward, we do have a question in the chat. So this goes to access with the platform. What is recommended? In the past, our school improvement chairs and principals worked in Assist. What is a recommendation for working in the MICIP platform?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, Mike. And some of the, this is what most of the districts seem to be grappling with, right? Is how MICIP is really kind of flipped the improvement plan process to be more of a district-led process versus the individually led processes at the schools, at the school level. So there's a couple things that can be done. If you wish to run it at a district level, then what we are recommending is something we're going to talk about a little bit later in this session is a collaborative template. So the collaborative template is basically a template that models the platform question by question. It allows for more collaboration for groups, but it could really be used either district down at a district level, or it could be used at a school level for you then to continue to analyze those plans at a district level. So it really gives some flexibility of how you want to lead your process. Laura, would you like to add to that, or?
No, well said. Tool that we'll share with you today really is help, I think, in that process. Thinking of the MICIP platform as not a place where you're doing the process, it's a place where you're documenting your process. So thinking about the MICIP, the continuous improvement process happens with or without a platform. The platform really is where you're documenting that work.
Thank you.
So let's take a look at your goals. So the question has been out there, how many goals do we need to have, or plans, as the MICIP term is used. So there is a minimum of 1 goal in MICIP required, but there is no maximum number of goals for entry. But keep in mind, you want to be realistic. And if a district has 52 goals, it's going to be tough to manage all of those goals in a couple of years. So making it manageable, but having a minimum of 1 goal. There is no requirement regarding the focus of the goals. So previously, there was the recommendation you had to have all of your content areas covered. Now, it's really writing goals based on where you identify your needs and your challenges that you've identified in your data. So it could be in academic areas, it could be a systems area for your district, or it could be a non-academic area, such as behavior or health, or thinking about those whole child areas that have been identified through the WISC model. In addition, districts must complete a plan for each new goal or for strategies and activities that are not previously part of an improvement plan. So, MICIP is requiring a minimum of one goal. If you are using a goal that you've had in the past, let's stick with literacy. You've had a literacy goal in the past, and you want to continue that goal with those same strategies and activities, you do not necessarily need to enter that into MICIP. So it's a real big shift in our thinking and in our mindset around what do plans look like? What do goals look like? So if you have a new goal, so maybe you didn't have a behavior goal before, and now you want to have a behavior goal with strategies and activities, that you would need to enter into MICIP, do the data analysis for it. It's a new area of inquiry for you. If you are just sticking with the same goals as you've had before because you're in maintenance with them or it's still active and you're not adding anything new, you still need to at least transfer one of those goals into MICIP because, again, there's a minimum of one goal required. So what does this look like for state and federal programs? We've always been taught that whatever is in your consolidated application has to be in your district improvement plan. Well, that's out the window right now. So if you have strategies and activities that were previously funded with, let's say, Title I, so maybe you had a paraprofessional that you funded through Title I for literacy previously, and you want to continue that, it does not need to be identified in a goal. You can just automatically put it in your consolidated application within the Nexus system. If you have something new, you will want to put it into in MICIP. Anything you put in MICIP in your plan, in your goal, is for strategies and activities are automatically going to be transferred into the consolidated app in Nexus if it has funding attached to it. So that is an advantage of putting in those strategies and activities into a goal, is that you're going to be able just to pull those up and not re-enter them into your consolidated app. This is a difficult shift for me to make right now. I'm sure it's difficult for others because it's a new way of thinking. I am so used to that. If you want something funded, if it's part of your plan, you need to put it in your plan. Everything needs to align. Now there's an assumption if it's been in a previous plan, you've already done your needs assessment, you've identified your challenges, you're going to just continue that. You do not need to put it in MICIP. It can go into your consolidated app, or you can just continue doing it without it being in MICIP. The caveat with that, as we think about it, is you might have a continuous improvement plan at your district level that is documented in a previous district improvement plan, is documented in MICIP, is documented in the consolidated app, and in the building Title I plans. So you might have to put all of those documents together to get a full picture of what your continuous improvement plan is for your district. If you put everything into MICIP, it's all in one place. Again, complete district decision on that, but just want to give you different perspectives as you think about what you want to put into MICIP, into the platform for this year. So I'm going to pause and ask, are there any questions or wonderings about that?
I just want to clarify. So it's probably best to put something in MICIP so that it pulls into Nexus, but you're not required to. Is that correct?
That is correct, that you have that function. If it's in MICIP, it will connect with Nexus. If it's not, you are going to have to type that into the consolidated app within Nexus.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
Laura, sorry, pardon me. I leading this, that's the people who are on this call are probably expected to lead this. And whenever you're doing something that results in change in behavior, change of outcomes, etc., usually I like to start with a why. So if I'm going to my principals and asking them to help me build this team that's going to go back and reflect on the data that we do kind of culturally anyway, and we have historically done so using the previous system in Assist. Now, they don't have to go through that level of analysis at the SIP level to help us drive our decision-making around the DIP level. But I'm seeking clarity on why we would do something different, in the sense that probably 3 years ago, we've kind of did a full scale analysis of all this. We created a strategic plan. We have our SIP and DIPs aligned to that strategic plan based upon what we interpreted at that time as needs of the organization. We continue to monitor the data that feeds into that. I can take any one of those goals, copy and paste to kind of check the box for this new process. But I'm struggling with going through the leadership for myself to push them, move their cheese per se, to do something different that's not required to be different, other than you have to have one goal, and that's, literacy probably would be the goal we'd start with. I'm really struggling with convincing myself to convince them on the why to do all this work that we've already done in the old system, if the old system's good enough. Or am I missing something strategically clear that, from your point of view, that I'm not gaining here?
So let me try to paraphrase to make sure I understand your question around the why. So is it, why are we required to enter something into MICIP?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So the reality is the state came out with this new process. They spent years developing it, and here we are, and we're going to be asked to do it. But you're also saying you don't really have to do anything different if you like what you've already done. You just got to make sure you check this box by putting at least one of those old things into the new thing, so that the new thing looks like it's completed, so that you can continue down the path of your old thing. And that's, old is, is new again, is not really a good why to do the work. And I'm trying to organize myself to identify pulling together a team in the middle of COVID, when, people feel stressed, strained, committed to other things, to do that for the sake. And I want to do it right. I am an altruistic person by nature. So I want to be true to the process. I want to be able to defend not going all in on this process, be perfectly honest. At the same time, using the why as a rationale for the effort and work that I'm going to be asking my teams to put into this, if it's not really required. Maybe I'm missing it, and I apologize and say, Joel, another time, we'll talk later, and I'm good with that. But I'm just struggling with getting it as to why we're doing this. If they're saying you don't have to do it, if you like your old process, just make sure you have one of them in there for Nexus, Because I can continue my consolidated app without doing anything different other than taking one of my old goals, copying and pasting it, putting it in there, and checking that off. And that may be what I do, and that makes probably the easiest sense. But part of me who's a purist, altruistic purist to some nature, feels like that's cheating, and I don't want to cheat if it's wrong.
Can I step in?
Yeah.
Absolutely, anybody can step in.
All right. So Joel, great questions, because I don't know if you know, but I was part of building this platform for the last 3 years. And those were all my questions, is because my mindset kept coming back to compliance. And so it took me a long time. And so I get the message from the state and the ISD, and we're all in this together, and we're all trying to decide what's best for the situation. But I think the thing that keeps me coming back to why MICIP for me is the following. So it's not about compliance. It's not about meeting the needs of the consolidated app or any of those things, because if that is where your mindset's at today, then absolutely transfer one over and check it off for this year of COVID and move forward. But from my perspective, it'd be this. There is a goal in mind, if you want to call it that. And so I'm going to use math for a minute. So if we want to take a math goal that we all have in our district and then move it over into MICIP and say we have a math goal, we've met our compliance, we're done, and that's where we want to stand. There's no judgment here from anyone. From my perspective, though, I'm looking at our math goal that we've had for the last decade, and our math scores are even or even slightly below where they have been in the last decade. Okay, so that tells me a couple things. Compliance wise, it's one thing, but to actually do what's best for kids or what we're doing in our math scores isn't working. So the root cause of the MICIP program allows you to take a different framing, to not think about the compliance piece of just getting it done, but what is it that's causing my 4th, 5th, and 6th grade scores to continue to decrease over the last 5 or 6 years? And what is it in our tier 1 instruction or our program or our intervention and dig really, really deep into those things. Make the MICIP piece usable for yourselves. And don't worry about the compliance piece of things. Just make it really, really, really usable. And that's how I'm selling it here in my district. I don't know if that helped, Joel, but that's just 2 cents.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mike, and I think it does. But part of what I'm going to go back to, I was in a session with Reader a few years back in Lansing when they were saying, they're going to penalize us, take away our at-risk monies if we're not trying to do good things by kids and raise those scores. And he kind of stood up, and I can't remember his exact words because my brain doesn't work that way, but he basically said, what the hell do you think we've been doing? Do you really think that you threatening to take money away from us is going to change our efforts to do right by kids all the time? So I can appreciate that. And we do that kind of work. I think all of us do work where we're, doing some self-reflection, probably harder on ourselves than we deserve to be. And hopefully, we're doing that work. So I appreciate that example. And I think I can use that as a challenge to our principals to say, are we doing exactly as Mike just described? Are we truly looking intrinsically at what's taking place in our classrooms and truly being honest about the outcomes that we're receiving and they're valid and reliable and accurate? Or is it something that we as the adults can change in our practices to do better? And I really want to believe that that's done daily in everyone's classrooms in our leadership here. So I appreciate that. So that might give me a little bit more of a strategy, but so thank you. I appreciate that time you gave to me.
Yeah, and just in reflection on Marcel, I mean, overall our math goal looks great because it's a K-12 math goal, and our high school is doing a nice job, and our K2, K3 teachers are doing a really nice job. But if we really dive into it, there is a quick pattern there that's been there for probably half of my tenure. And it's that root cause allowed us to say, okay, forget the goal K-12. Let's focus on 2 or 3 strategies here to fix 2 or 3 grade levels, because who knows what that would do for our upper middle schools and high schools if we fix those at that level. So, but yeah, hopefully that, I agree with you, Joel, on that last analysis. Thank you.
Mike, go ahead. Birdie.
Thanks, Laura. So I think the challenge on our end, speaking candidly, is, and speaking with Susan and some others, we're super excited to get into more of an authentic school improvement process. I think that's long overdue, and that's a good thing. But to do so and also have a new system coming online for our state and federal programs with the Nexus system, I think creates some apprehension, because many of the people on the call right now work in MEGs and know that's very much compliance driven. So again, the apprehension is we don't even know what Nexus will look like, what the relationship with Nexus will be to MICIP. So yes, it's exciting to get into more authentic school improvement processes, but the reality is we still live in a world where we have a lot of resources on the line that we're accountable for.
Absolutely. And how do we find that balance between a great, rich process and checking those boxes that need to be checked? Totally get that. Thank you all for sharing. It's challenging because of the state of education for the past almost year now, and adding new systems, adding a new process. That process began, almost 2 years ago when we started talking about the mindset for MICIP and the shift to that. But then the new tools, that's apprehension for everyone, because there's some level of compliance. Well, I have to have these certain things done in each, and how do I ensure that's done, but how do I still stay true to a good process for improvement? So appreciate your thoughts on that, and we'll continue the conversation.
All right, so continuing on that making decisions path, another decision as a district that needs to be made is the data analysis process. So basically writing that data story. Within the MICIP platform, there's not a process built into it. So they don't take you through that data analysis. Your district will have to decide on the protocol that you want to use for that. Maybe it's a protocol that you've been for your data analysis, or it might be a new one. Within the process guide on page 20, they do list a couple of examples and provide those links. So for example, they have the Wellman and Lipton data dialogue example in there that you can click on. They have an adaptive schools live binder so that you can find some protocols through there. But basically, again, that's a decision you have to make for your team as far as what process you want to use. And then also that root cause analysis that we've been speaking about a lot. Important to get to that basic area that you're working on. The platform actually provides for you the 5 whys and the fishbone, and then also gives you that option of doing another way to get to that root cause, maybe something else that you're familiar with as a district. But those are also linked within the platform, and they're in that process guide on page 21. And then I believe they're also linked on that checklist that we provided for you today. So again, something to look through and make decisions on.
Okay, so to reiterate one more time, the MICIP platform is not the process. Rather, it is the documentation of your process. So that's really important. If you go through the platform step by step, it's more probably of a compliance to, and especially if you go through it alone, it would be more of a compliance idea. But rather the platform, and especially in its current state, because it's not collaborative, really is the documentation of your process. So we have created I'm sorry, we have not created, but the state has created a collaboration document, which we spoke to a little bit earlier in regard to Mike Birdie's question. So this is a paper template, basically, or a Word document template that allows your teams to engage in the process in a more collaborative way. So what you will be able to see is, as you work through the template, is that number one is identify the area of inquiry. That is the very first box in, or very first part of the platform that needs to be completed. So this follows the platform identically. So what some districts are doing is dividing into goal teams and really doing that. Stephanie talked about creating the teams, so making a broad team to encompass different grade levels, different skill sets, and then working through the process using this collaborative document to document their work. Then what the district will be doing is identifying someone who will be then doing the compliance task, right, of copying this over into the MICIP platform. What's nice about the platform is that as things get copied over into it, we talked about this a little bit in another recording, was that you are able to set interim targets and end target dates and get alerts as far as what you need to be doing, or what you can choose to do as a district to collect data to monitor the success of what you've chosen to do. So the platform is more than just the compliance component. It really does become your kind of your go-to place to finish that cycle of continuous improvement, right? We're going to monitor, we're going to check in and see what's working, what's not working, how are we changing things, and then maybe resetting some interim target dates to see if our changes are actually taking place. So Laura scrolled down to that number 10 where you do identify those interim and target dates. So it's more than just that compliance platform. So Laura, if you could go back to the slide, please. Okay. So now that we have been speaking to a collaborative document that teams could use, the state has also, so I'm going to completely shift gears here a little bit. The state has also created what is called the MICIP alternative template. Now, this looks very close to the collaborative document, but the difference is that this year, and this year only, we are being told, is that the the alternative template can be used in place of completing the work in the MICIP platform. Okay, I'll say that one more time. The alternative template can be used in place of completing the work in the MICIP platform. 1 year only. I'm waiting for questions on this one. So basically, the whole platform is within this template. The only caveat is that anything you put in here for strategies will not transfer to the consolidated application within Nexus. Okay. New strategies will not transfer to the consolidated application within Nexus. All right, I'm going to stop. What questions do you have about this information?
So what is the advantage of using this versus just using MICIP?
I don't know of any.
Okay, thanks.
We haven't been able to really, it really just comes back around to if you're going to enter this information, you might as well enter it in MICIP because you're going to have to do it next year. I don't know. I guess maybe the only advantage is maybe next year you feel more up to it. There's no really, we can't figure out a really good way. Originally, it might have been that the only way to access the MICIP platform was through the data hub, but there's a workaround with that now. So now it seems even less reason to use the alternative template.
So again, even though this decision is not on that decision-making checklist for your district, that is a decision to make. Are we going to submit or document our continuous improvement plan in the MICIP platform or on the template process here? And as Susan said, it goes one for one with the MICIP platform to the template. It's not a different process. It's just a different way to document it. One, you're using the platform. One, you're using a Word doc.
Great. I think we're ready to move on, Laura.
Okay, so we want to share some resources with you. There was a survey that we've shared with you, and it's around providing support to your district around the MICIP process. So if you would take a moment to complete that survey, just a few questions so that we can provide some support to you as you need it. The MICIP website is ever evolving and ever growing. So I encourage you to visit that website frequently. There are different areas for you to take a look at. Notably, I want to show you the professional learning. It takes a look at all three aspects of MICIP with the mindset, the process, and the platform. Within each, there are some videos, and they include the slides and the speaker notes with those videos. Just a plug for our next MICIP chat. We will be sending out dates and information on those shortly. We are actually going to go through whole child data. There's been a lot of questions about what data could we collect or connections can we make to other data sources with the whole child perspective. And so that's going to be our topic for our next chat. But there are some resources in here around the whole child. When you get into the process, it goes, needs assessment, the planning process, budget impacts, and then the platform. They're continuing to release videos and information around the platform as well. Under resources, there are MDE resources, including the platform guide, the data inventory form. So when you're doing that initial data inventory, initial initiative inventory, you can take a look at some things, some resources from the field. So other ISDs and districts have created some resources that you might find helpful. And down here under current topics, there is another link for the process guide. which includes a lot of resources in itself, where it explains each piece of the process, provides some guiding questions, and has live links to resources for that particular section. The template is located here as well. So if your district chooses to use the template process, you can find it right here. But the frequently asked questions document has just been updated. It includes process and platform questions and answers. And the first one is that hot topic: how many goals or plans must a district complete, and what must the focus be? So this document is an essential document you'll want to take a look at. And so that is all the content that we have for you today, but we want to make sure that we're answering your questions and addressing your needs. So let's open it up to the participants and see what you have for us today.
Hey, Laura and Susan, this is Liz, and I do have a question. So the district only needs to have one goal in its MICIP plan. Is it, and then you tag the buildings according to the strategies that apply to them for that goal. Is it possible that you would develop a goal where you would not have a building tagged at all?
And Susan and Stephanie jump in. I would think if it were a systems level goal, possibly, that really is a district focus, where instead of tagging all of the buildings, you may just say it's an overall district goal.
So for example, if we wanted to be laser focused on 3rd grade reading, and that is where our Title I money goes, is it possible that that would be our district goal, in which case we wouldn't necessarily have our high school tagged?
Correct. You would tag your buildings that have a 3rd grade.
That's acceptable.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's Chris sent me an email privately, Chris Williams, and I want to, Chris, I'm not going to specifically say what your question is, but I'm gonna explain something that's available in MICIP or in the platform. So one of the things that, so before with Assist, the ISD was able to see all plans, and you guys would call or I would send you an email. Usually you got an email from me saying, this is still undone, and please do these tasks. So the view is a little different for us now. But what we are able to do in order to help you is to do what's called impersonate. So for instance, I could go in as Mike Pickard, and I could choose impersonate, and I could, Susan Brumwell, as an ISD person, I could go in and potentially give one of his goal facilitators access to the platform, okay? But I'm going to work with Mike to establish that relationship, that I have the ability to do that. So you need to be assured that we are not going to go in and mess with your goals in any way. But do know that if you need us to do something for you in that way, we can, but you need to ask us, because we are not just going to assume to impersonate anybody in your district that has administrative access. So Chris, knowing that, I could help you if need be. Okay, I'll message you, but I can impersonate your administrator and assign you a role.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So the reason that that is done is if you ever get in a bind, or let's say that one of the Laura, Stephanie, or I are out in your district helping you, and you are not available to give somebody a role that needs to have a role, you can simply say, can you please impersonate me and assign that role for me? Okay, so you can give us some quick administrative rights to help you when you're in a bind or not available. Okay, what other questions might you have? Jenny Fee threw a PowerPoint link into the chat. Jenny, that looks really nice. How was it received?
It went pretty well. It didn't take that long, not as long as I thought. We didn't go into any specifics related. It was just an overview of the new process and how we do it differently. And so I think people appreciated that you didn't have to look at data from all over the place to identify areas of need, because like you said, we do kind of know where we need to be. And so that was appreciated. And so kind of the next steps are, I left it to them to think about their specific areas of needs in their buildings. And then we'd come back together to sort of begin that process. So it went pretty well. I did it as a sit and get just because we were virtual, but I think you could take a longer process and let people maybe navigate through the process guide a little bit more and get a deeper understanding. But for the COVID purpose, the sit and get worked fine. And it took about 20 minutes.
Yeah. So Stephanie and I were out in Kentwood last night, and it came down to, because the information was so new, a lot of people didn't know what questions they actually had. So I think once we start getting into the process, that's where the questions are going to be around. So let's take, for instance, if you do you work through the 5 whys, there may be questions on really how do you actually perform that activity and participate in the activity. So one of the things that we'll be doing is there are identified facilitators for each one of the goals that, and Mike, I hope it's okay to kind of share your process a little bit. I don't know if he might have dropped off.
Perfectly fine.
Okay, so they have we've identified 3 areas of inquiry for the district, and a facilitator has been assigned to each one of those areas that have been identified. So Stephanie and I met with the whole group yesterday, did a little bit of an overview, but then we'll be working with the facilitators next Friday to help them get started with their teams. So, but yesterday it was a lot of new information. But what we are going to do too is then be available for those small goal teams in order to support them. So I'm really looking forward to that process. I think it's going to be great. The teams are cross-representational of all the way from the business office to the EL support to administrators and classroom teachers. So it's a really good representation, cross-representation.
Has anybody developed, or is there any kind of little cheat sheet that is like get your, superintendent to sign off on the MICIP agreement, Is there like a little cheat sheet of steps like that anywhere developed amongst those millions of resources? Because that gets overwhelming to look at what you shared on that website.
Yes, depending on, Julie, like how, like where does your checklist is starting at really the data hub, and then how far do you want it to go? Because I think there are multiple ones that do different phase work.
Because unlike what Kentwood is way ahead on, apparently, I'm planning to do most of this myself, and I'm not really bringing my principals too far into it this year. It is a pandemic and I'm just not doing it. I am not going to overwhelm the buildings. It's terrible timing, as was said earlier. So I don't really want to do it. I'm going to be doing the one goal and keeping it simple, kind of a thing. So the overview that Jenny shared was great. And a little bit of that I will do. I've already done a teeny bit of it, but that's about it. I am not going nuts over this year for sure.
Okay. So one of the things that we're suggesting is, so that survey link that Laura spoke to really is a way to identify what supports you want from us. We are supporting you and the way that you want to do this. So if you would like to choose one of us to help you with your steps, that's fine, and we'll help you. So we'll get you what you need and make sure you are successful. That is something that I've been communicating to anyone who's reached out. We are not going to let you fail.
Maybe just to piggyback what Julie mentioned in the past, the Ken ISD team has prepared some pretty concise, easy to understand documents with timelines relative to school improvement. This time frame, you need to be thinking about this and so on. Does that shift at all? Does the thinking change with rolling out MICIP?
So I think there are going to be some changes, Mike, just because of the setting of those interim targets and end targets, that the cycle should be much more apparent and much more visible in my mind. So not that the goal cycles are going to look the same. You may want to monitor a particular goal heavier than another. You may have, over time, you may have goals that are in maintenance, where you may have new goals that require a greater amount of monitoring. So the platform is going to allow for that kind of, when we look to the future, maybe 2-3 years out, you're going to see the differences in the amount of time that needs to really be spent in a particular goal.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think just some other pieces hanging out there, such as like the Title I school-wide or targeted template, as I understand it, does not live within MICIP, but it's still something we need to do as part of our planning process, things such as that.
Mm-hmm. So are you asking then, can we put something together, kind of maybe a month by month, quarter by quarter outline that might help you organize that a little better?
I think that would be helpful. And some of those you've done in the past, like we rely on quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. We can certainly do that.
I want one right now for now through June.
Now through June? Okay, that should be the focus, right? We shouldn't look at the beginning of the year. Let's take it from now so you're successful now.
Right.
Perfect, Julie.
So I threw a document into the chat. Is actually a diagram of the MICIP process that we've developed, because it can be so overwhelming. I saw presentations and we, especially in the early stages, trying to wrap our minds around it, we just needed a visual. And so we worked to create this document that hopefully helps with the flow of how everything goes and some of the new vocabulary and language that goes along with MICIP. So for example, what we call goals, actually, when you put all of your strategies and activities, it becomes a plan. So you have a math plan that includes a math goal, interim and end targets, and math strategies and activities. And then you'll have another plan, maybe a literacy plan, that will have a literacy goal with strategies and activities and targets. And when you put all of those plans together, it creates a portfolio, which we would have called our district improvement plan. So to really try to get a better understanding of it, we worked on this document. So I hope it helps in wrapping your brain around it too. And we're going to continually update it as well, possibly put some live links in it for the process guide. So if you say, oh, I'm on the strategy piece of it and I have questions, you can just click on that and take you right to where you need to go in the process guide. So also trying to align it with the MTSS process and with the data review process, so that those of you who work with us at the ISD, we can draw some parallels for you and be very explicit about those connections, so it's not looking like a separate process. And we've actually been working with my MTSS Technical Assistance Center to make those explicit connections. So alignment is the goal, and not make this such a different process that everything needs to be revamped, because it doesn't. Districts are engaging in continuous improvement, and I'd say in the past year more than you ever have, on a faster cycle than you ever have, due to needing to change how instruction is delivered, how you count attendance, how you look at distributing food to students. Districts are engaging in this. You're not necessarily documenting everything because you're making decisions at such a quick pace right now, but continuous improvement right now is happening so much more than I think it ever has.
Yeah, that document looks helpful. My wondering is, when should we be doing an area of inquiry? Is that something that we would need to do February-ish? How long does that take? You know, we've obviously done quite a few data protocols over the years, but this looks a little more extensive. So I'm just trying to wrap our thoughts around the time and when that time would need to take place.
Yeah, I think one of the working backwards from your end date of school, and having the availability of the staff that you would like to have on your team. So that's one of the main lenses probably to think through, is when do I have the people available to actually work through the process. So I would say probably as soon as possible to get started if you're planning to put together a team around an area of inquiry. Just knowing that everybody's not familiar with all the processes, it's going to be the first time to run through, a little more time needed for explanations, maybe getting, if you want assistance from our team, getting on our calendars to do that. So just kind of thinking from that standpoint, Mike.
Any other questions or wonderings you might have right now that we can help you with? Well, please know that you can contact any of us at any time. Like Susan said, we're not going to let you fail. And this is not a pass or fail thing. We're really trying to help you along to have a better understanding of the process and the platform, and to make it as efficient as possible for you, based on what it is that you need in your district. So hang in there. Let us know what you need, and thanks for being here today. We really appreciate it.